concerned should parents be out there and in terms of how widespread this is?
Well, certainly parents that have children that are going, or young adults that are going out clubbing and staying out till 7 in the morning. I don't know if you remember when you used to go out to the hotel and you'd be home by about 2, 3 at the maximum. Well, they're going off to recovery at 7 o'clock. Now, you can't do that without some sort of stimulant.
OK, so that's got to be the
so
first
that's
warning to parents.
the first warning is if they're out all night and they come home and they're still chirpy, you'd have to ask a question. There's a lot of other sort of symptoms that you can pick up on, that parents can pick up on, and that is that, you know, they'll be grinding their teeth, typical amphetamine side effect, or they might have what we call speed sores. So they get a tactile hallucination, and it's called formication, so don't spell it wrong. And it's, they think they've got mites under their skin, so they try and pick them out, squeeze them out on their face, so you get speed sores.
So like the junkie itches that you hear about.
but more intense.
Really?
Absolutely more intense. They're trying to dig out something they think is in there.
Right.
And a little mite, something in their paws.
But does that occur to someone who's taken it for the first time, or does that sort of thing occur to someone who's...
Well, it can. There's no rule of thumb here. Some people will have immediate side effects like psychosis, like hallucinations. Some people will have an incredible tolerance to it and will get the speedy effects and the high effects and the good effects. And it'll take time. Right. As they use more and the tolerance gets higher, that's when you start to see the anger and the violence. And,
right.
And, you know, look, this is without doing any formal research. I've noticed over the last few years, just the newspaper and the news articles about violence, stabbings, around clubs. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together and say, well, OK, there's an epidemic of ice and there's an epidemic of violence.
And you know firsthand what this is all about too.
Yeah.
I mean, you are a former addict, you're a former smuggler, you're a reformed addict now. I mean, you've been there in every sense.
Yeah, what sort of addict were you? What was your poison?
Well, I usually sum it up by saying that I started off as a motor mechanic. Then I was a businessman that liked drugs. Right. And then I started selling drugs, smuggling drugs, running guns, robbing banks, prisoner, then a psychologist. So that was a sort of quick...
Certainly know what you're talking about then.
But I used heroin for 12 years on a daily basis. Wow. I used alcohol, started off with alcohol, like most young people, binge drinking when you're a kid, progressed onto cannabis, like that. Okay. I actually started selling it before I liked it. I grew up in West Heidelberg, very poor family, so I was looking at an economic solution to my life, and got involved that way. And I was very successful at business as a young man. I should have stayed in that business. My family now have a chain of automotive franchises around the country, and I helped start that. So there's things I could have done, but I chose to use drugs. And I don't think I was a bad person, but what happened is that drugs took control. Yeah. You know, a man takes a drug takes a drug, then the drug takes the man. Yeah. It's a very simple Chinese proverb.
Yeah. We might talk some more about this, particularly about the treatment and what you can do if you're addicted, what parents might be able to do if they fear their children are addicted. Yeah. Stick around. We've got somebody from your clinic coming in as well.
That's right, yeah.
We'll be back with more of this after this.
Welcome back. We're continuing our chat about the dangers of the drug ice with Richard Smith, and we're joined now by Simon Francis, who's recently graduated from Richard's clinic. Simon, thanks for coming in.
Good morning.
Well, between the two of you, how about you just explain what the clinic is, and Simon, you can tell us, you know, how you actually got involved.
Well, I used drugs for about 23 years, and towards the end I was using ice, and it basically turned me into a maniac. And I had a point where I was, you know, fighting with my family, my mother and father, which are beautiful, lovely people. And I got to a point where I was punching on with my father, and I was calling my mother every name under the sun, and I was standing over them. I couldn't hold a job down. Everything that I did was basically in the pursuit of getting this drug. And when you're on it, you want more and more and more. And when you're off it, all you do is try to find ways to get more. So, yeah, basically I got to a point where I just I was actually starting to plan an armed robbery so I could get a huge amount of it. And that's just not me. That's not the type of person that I am. And I did everything that I said I'd never do. And I'd got to the point where I just wanted it to stop. I couldn't stop. You know, every week, living paycheck to paycheck. You know, I'd spend all my wages on the drug.
So you were still working though?
I was still working, yeah.
So were you, for want of a better word, flying at work?
Oh, absolutely. I had a job where I had it delivered to the back door at times where I was working, yep.
And it must have affected your work?
Well, in the start I was using it to try and sort of keep an edge. I was a chef for 20 years. And at the start, you know, it was good. I was able to keep that edge. But in the end, it just fries your brain, and I was fried. You know, I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember things from 1 minute to the next, basically.
Because it just ruined your brain.
Ruins your brain. Fries the frontal lobes of your brain.
So how did you get involved in Richard's program?
Well, I'd got to the point where I wanted help, and I was having huge anger attacks too when I was coming down off the drug. You know, I had road rage. I had people bailed up in traffic. You know, someone had cut me off in traffic, and normal people would just, yeah, whatever.
Give them the finger.
Yeah, whatever.
Carry on.
But I'd chase them and get out of the car and smash their window and that kind of stuff, you know. Turned me into an absolute maniac. Yeah. And my folks, God bless them, had heard about Richard's program, and they'd actually tricked me into it to start with, to go for some anger management counselling. And that's what I thought I was going for initially, was anger management counselling. And I got to Richard's clinic, and I spoke to him for about 10 minutes and then actually realised why I was there. And I just sort of had a moment of clarity, and I thought, well, you know, if you're ever going to change your life and stop this roller coaster, then this is going to be the time to do it, you know. And it changed my life, basically.
Let's talk about the clinic, Richard.
Yeah, what happens when you see someone like Simon come in? Are they all the same, or some? Do you ever? Are you ever frightened? Do you ever think, oh,
they're
I
all
don't know?
quite different, but
because it's a drug addiction clinic. We should point out straight away.
The Raymond Clinic. I set up the clinic many years ago to try and address a problem that I didn't see government programs addressing, and that what happened with government programs is they decided to have harm minimisation. So, you know, controlled using, and let's try and reduce the harm associated with it. And I decided that I needed to have a totally abstinent-based program, and we set up a program. Guys like Simon come in all the time, and young women. We've got a 15-year-old girl there at the moment who's, you know, used ice in clubs. She's getting into clubs at 15, you know.
And what do? You have to grab them and hold them there, or if it's total abstinence?
So we can't imprison them, and they run off. We've had a guy that stayed there for 2 weeks, and he's gone. He should have been there for 12. The young girl who's come back, she was there for 2 weeks, run off, but came back when she realised nothing had changed. So, you know, I set up a program that was going to look at, I think, the 5 aspects of addiction, which is, you know, it affects us physically, it affects us emotionally, it affects us how we think, it affects us spiritually, and Simon should be helping me here and giving me the 5th one. But, you know, we look at all the aspects, and so what we try to do is treat all those aspects. It's not just about changing their thinking or changing their social environment, or it's about changing how they react and respond emotionally. And then also, really the foundation of the 12-step program that we use is spiritual based.
Simon, you've been through, you're now 6 months clean.
Yeah, yep.
How different does it feel now than it did when you were an addict?
I feel like a completely different person. I feel like today I'm not the person that I was when I was using drugs.
Do you still have a taste for it though? I mean, do you get into those circumstances where you go, oh, I could, you know?
I still have thoughts, but, you know, those thoughts are just thoughts.